Our journey carries on as I feel the temperature dip. What are these stomping grounds you're so eager to see? I ask the sword. It glows with excitement. I had one bearer, Jonah, who pushed me to the limit. The armies of the mountain folk were arrayed against us. The fighting seemed like it would last forever. Those were good days. You could learn a thing from Jonah. Fight for the fun of it. My lips make a line. We carry on as the mountain range looms over us. I'm not used to hunting in this tundra. I complain as I go without a meal. Once you learn the true power of cultivation, you will be able to live on the chi of heaven and earth. I look about as I clean up camp. That doesn't help fill my belly right now. Ah, little mortal, great things take time. With a sigh, I continue treading upon the path. Around noon, I come upon a small village. The villagers are friendly, and I'm able to purchase a second cloak. I don the fur-lined article and purchase some food for my journey. The road leads ever northward, and I savor the warmth of my purchase. A pass between two mountains sees us to a checkpoint. The guards look vigilant as they examine me. For what reason are you entering the Rungi territory? I look placidly at the man. Just wandering. The guards look from one another to me. You are aware of the insurgents, are you not? I look to the sword. Don't look at me, boyo. This is all news to me. I wasn't aware, I say. The guards shrug. They're not fond of strangers to the land. Be careful if you're still going. I nod as I am allowed to pass. Where are we headed anyways? I ask. It should be around here. The land wasn't called Rungi in my time, but the battlefield should be nearby. Our search leads us off the beaten path. What I find I can hardly comprehend. Crater lakes and mountains cut in half at odd angles. Yes, the sword says excitedly. Jonah knew how to get a job done. All this, I ask, was done by you? Well, the sword says defensively. There were others, but mostly it was me. I look at one of the mountains. It has a sharp wedge that cuts into its side. How is that possible? Silly mortal. You haven't seen anything yet. The ancient battlefield looks pockmarked, like the face of the moon. I take a moment to absorb the reality of the weapon I carry. Are you satisfied now? The sword glows. Yes, thank you, bearer. I turn us back to the road. The ancient destruction left as it was ages ago. A town is found nearby, and I enter its streets. The faces I see aren't hostile. Rather, they seem anxious. Men and women move hastily to their destinations. These people, the sword says, need to calm down. They're acting like the town's about to blow up. No sooner does it say that before a building before me explodes. Damn, I hear as I fall to the ground. Wood and shattered glass settle on the ground. What the hell was that? I hear myself ask. Black powder, the sword notes. Powder did that? I find myself stunned by the notion. I hardly think that matters right now. My eyes find a man's bloody figure in the wreckage. I rush over and find the man breathing. The clutter comes off of him, and I look into his confused eyes. He gasps. I can't feel. His ragged breathing comes to a subtle end. Blank eyes look up at me. The local guards arrive and command the gawkers to disperse. Out of the way, one of the guards says to me. I am cordoned off and pushed back. The rebels, someone spits. Why would they blow up Jesse's business? Some mournful looks are shared. Doesn't matter why, they're terrorists. The army needs to come in and scour the city. A number of voices echo the sentiment. Whatever the masses want has nothing to do with me. I depart from the scene and navigate through the population center until I find an inn. The rate is lower than in the south, and I find a quiet place to decompress. Other than with the bandits, I never watched someone die. It was such a transient experience. He lived one moment, and the next he didn't. You gonna be all right, partner? I look up to realize that I'm not alone. Yes, it's just... I know, it says. It's one thing to die in battle. It's the risk you take when you pick up a weapon. But to die like that... It's sad. The sword is surprisingly sympathetic in a moment like this. Buck up, boyo. You just happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. I nod as I leave myself most of my things in the room and put the sword on my belt. The innkeeper is polite as I walk out into the dwindling day. A tavern is nearby, and I take up position at the bar. What'll you be having tonight? The bartender asks. Just an ale, please. The man nods and fills a mug with something bitter. You new in town? The man behind the counter asks. Just traveling through. The man wipes a mug. You'd be best getting out of town quick. I look over my drink at him. He holds up his hands. It's not that I want you gone. It's just the new Liberation Front. The bartender can't finish his thought before someone comes up from behind me. Screw those guys, the man says. Liberation from what? Society? I don't express my own confusion. I know, Scott, the bartender says to the new man. The Empire's been good to the Rungi territory for 100 years. These liberators are self-serving radicals. Most of them are the land-holding elite. The room goes silent. Scott looks around the room. He's just calling it as it is. I see a number of heads nodding as they go back to their own conversations. What do you mean, I ask, by land-holding elite? In a lower voice, the man says, just what I said. The landowners want to throw off the Empire's taxes. Does nothing to help the common folk, and we're the ones who get caught up in the middle. I feel my understanding of the circumstances I've wandered into grow. The night grows long as a strong drink begins to take its toll. Good talking with you, I say to the bartender and Scott. My feet are steady, but it takes no small amount of focus to keep them that way. You all right, partner? The sword asks. I'm fine. The sword chuckles. I'll never understand humans and their desire to poison themselves. I smirk. Some things you will never know, my friend. My friend, the sword mocks. High praise indeed. Blame it on the booze, I say dryly. My trip to the inn is uneventful, and before long, I collapse into my soft bed. Dawn comes, and with it a pounding in my head. I find my way to the nearby well, and drink until I can't retain any more. I pant. I'm alive. The sword laughs. Humans and their poisons. My traveling gear finds me, and I turn to the south. Not sticking around? The sword asks. To watch a civil war from the front lines? No. I think I got my share of it yesterday. Oh, come on, the sword protests. We didn't even fight anyone. This place is ripe ground for battle. I pay no mind to the descent, and as I leave town and journey onto warmer climates, my trail leads me once more to the guards at the checkpoint. They're more diligent in their questions on my return, afraid of letting radicals pass, I suppose. But they let me pass, and I make my way. The days of my journey are peaceful. This is a life I'm comfortable with. As the void expands, the sword coaches, feel its core. I sit cross-legged, meditating on nothingness. From within that ball, you should find something. I focus on the abyss. Suddenly, my eyes snap open. What the hell was that? I demand. The sword chuckles. Scared to see yourself? My brow knits. What do you mean, myself? That was primal? The sword finishes my thought. I breathe in deeply. My eyes close again and I focus on the abyss of my mind. What I thought of as nothingness hides worlds. My consciousness meets the construct of my subconscious. It takes effort not to look away. The construct approaches me, gradually coalescing into a form I'm familiar with. Rather than me looking on something foreign, I find myself the stranger in this world. It examines me with anger in its gaze. You're beginning to see yourself as you are, comes a voice from far away. To grow as a cultivator, you must bridge the gap between your spirit and your body. I spend hours looking into my soul. All the pain and anger that I've held back finding out an outlet. I take the abuse, and gradually the image of me begins to relent. Rage gives way to confusion as we each try to make sense of one another. Slowly, the gap between us shrinks, and it falls into me, and I into it. A sense of peace comes over me as I look out on the world my soul inhabits. What is this? I hear myself ask. As if from far away, this is a world of your creation. It hides in the abyss. When you're ready, you can explore it. But for now, come back to the material world. It's already been 3 days, and I'm getting bored. I startle out of my mind. 3 days. Aye, boyo. You went on a deep dive. I feel a hunger in my belly and a thirst on my lips. In haste, I find my flask. After guzzling the water, I turn to the sword. How is that possible? I couldn't have been meditating for more than a couple of hours. Time travels differently in the soul, bearer. There's not much risk of overdoing it when you learn to live off of the chi of heaven and earth. But you're lucky you had me here to call you out. Coalescing your own spirit world is the first real hurdle in the path of immortality. I munch on some dried meat when I puzzle. What is it? The sword glows. Your spirit world is refined to fuel you with chi. For now, you must absorb the chi of the material world. This will fuel the growth of your spirit world. But one day, you will be able to subsist off of your own source of chi. I'm confused on many parts. But I set them aside as I clean up camp. My feet tread on the earth as I walk absent-mindedly onward. You said I could explore it. The sword glows. Yes. What will I find? The sword chuckles. Everything. I'm unsatisfied by the answer, but hold my tongue. Our journey lasts for several days. There are small villages along the way, but I don't stop at any of them. My destination is the town of Tia. The city is thriving, with vendors hawking their wares. As soon as I enter by the gate, fruit, vegetable, and meat are joined by baubles and curios. I search the town for its guild hall and make my way to it. Remember, I say, no glowing. The sword mumbles something as I enter the seedy den. A number of faces turn toward me before returning to their own business. Though in the minority, I see a party of dwarves drinking with good humor. I find the bounty wall. What will we be fighting next? The sword asks with anticipation. Looks like there's a drow incursion into the Empire's land out east. Dark elves. The sword is positively giddy. I haven't fought one of them in a long time. There's a garrison on the fringes that serves as the forward operational base. The guild doesn't miss me as I turn and leave the guild building. The city streets are energetic as I make my way out of town. The garrison is a day's journey along the road. When I arrive, I learn that the scouting party has already deployed. You can wait in the barracks, one of the secretaries says. There'll be another group going out tonight. I find an empty bed and lie down on it. You've never fought a drow, have you? No? The sword is silent for a moment. Don't worry, it says. I'll take over if you get in over your head. I sigh. I'm sure you will. The sword keeps talking as I close my eyes. I don't know when I fell asleep, but I come into consciousness as dusk breaks upon the world. A cry of pain and a clattering of steel greets me. Come on, bearer. We're missing all the action. My feet find me, and the sword comes out. I charge my way to the garrison's exit. A troop of men hold a failing line against dark-skinned adversaries. Kill them all, I hear one of the drow command his warriors. I'm confused by how I understand their language for a moment, but I disregard my confusion as I join the melee. I may not be as proficient in the art of the sword as the sword itself is, but I've picked up some of what it has displayed for me. The sword glows brightly as I swing down on an enemy. The man brings up his sword to block the strike, but the legendary sword cleaves through it like a hot knife through butter. The drow man is confused as the blade cuts into his shoulder. Pain distorts the man's delicate features as he loses an arm. I turn from the bleeding man to face a woman. Her angular cheekbones and almond-shaped eyes are somewhat alluring, but blatant hatred darkens her already dark face. A pair of sickles curve cruelly in her hands. As she slashes down on me, I block the attack. The sickle hooks around my blade and comes dangerously close to one of my eyes. Her second weapon comes at me from the side. I bend away from the strike and feel the bite of the blade superficially cut my belly. I collect myself and charge her. Still recovering her posture, the woman twirls. Her blades clash with my piercing strike. I'm thrown off balance, and I feel death loom over me as she lashes out. Vertigo hits me as I'm torn from control of my body. Amateur hour's over, partner. I watch my body, faster than I can comprehend, swing wide, and shatter the pair of sickles. The woman is in shock as my body bridges the gap between us. It almost seems like an embrace as we come together, but the mouthful of blood she coughs up attests to the truth. Her legs crumble beneath her, and my body looks on her pitiful form, gasping for air. I feel the sight of dark blood and the tears leaking from my eyes disquieting. "You're up, bearer." As quickly as it happened, I find myself in control of my body again. I look once more on what is now a corpse. I take a deep breath and rejoin the melee. It takes some time to push back the Dark Elves' assault. But soon the enemy commander calls back his forces. I'm breathing heavily alongside 20 others. Bodies from both sides litter the ground. It's a solemn moment to survive while others are lost. "That was awesome," the sword says ecstatically. I look blankly at it. "Oh, don't give me that look. I'm a sword. Of course I like fighting." "And the killing?" I ask. "Swords are sharp for a reason." I let the morality pass and look on my fellow adventurers. Men and women, humans and dwarves, report to the commander of the garrison. The woman is a fierce figure with short, cropped blonde hair, her armor chainmail with a blue tabard showing a fortified turret. "Thank you all," she says. The drow are growing more audacious with each passing day. A number of voices affirm her statement. "For those of you willing, the scouting party still needs to go out tonight." The gathering seems unmotivated to hunt after the fierce battle. While the gathering disperses, I walk up to the commander. "I don't know you," she says gruffly, "but you've proved your mettle on the battlefield." She smiles. "Your sword is interesting." I scratch my head as I think about the light show the sword put on in the heat of the battle. I assume you're on the roster. I nod my head. Good. Get yourself ready if you're going out on the night raid. She parts from me, and I am left with the bodies. A team has set about collecting the dead, and I think about how easily life can be taken. I turn from the scene and find a gathering in the garrison. The drow are closer than ever before. A voice pronounces, "We need to be vigilant. They are experienced in stealth magics. Watch your asses out there." The ruggedly handsome knight commander sorts through us as we wait for the whole raid team to assemble. "You're new," he says when he comes to me. "Yes, sir." His eyes fall upon my sword. "I heard about a new guy with an enchanted blade. Was that you?" "Enchanted," the sword says. "This man has no eye for quality." To think they would describe this legendary sword as something so common. Yes, this is my enchanted sword. The sword is silent for a moment. "Et tu, Askilar?" I suppress a smile as I turn my focus to the man before me. "Glad to have you. I'm Joannis. Stick with the team and you'll make it back alive." I nod as he continues to organize the raid. Finally, our mission begins, and we march out into the night. The moon is full, and we navigate the moonlit fields. Our formation is that of a chevron, and we cut a wide swath through the terrain. About an hour in, I see something. Rather, I see nothing, as a ripple on the surface of the world. An arrow appears from nowhere and pierces the man next to me in the formation. "Drow!" The alarm goes out while the pierced man falls to the ground. More arrows come flying in as the chevron falls in on itself. Where are they, damn it?" comes one gruff voice. "Watch for the ripples." Joannis calls for the patrol to calm down. "Oh, silly mortals." The sword speaks from my hand. The sword glows with a blinding light. The display only lasts a second, and when it's over, leaves the dark elves exposed. "Kill them!" The formation breaks, and our archers line up their targets. I lag behind as the soft belly of the enemy is gutted. Some drow run, but it's still a massacre. I watch the team once more take up the chevron. We continue the night without further complications. As we return to the garrison, Joannis goes over the after-action report. It's grueling, and we all want for sleep. Finally, we are let loose. "Askilar," I hear behind me. I turn to find a short woman with a witch's hat looking up at me. Yes, I'm unsure where she picked up my name. She pauses. "May I see your sword?" "Ha-ha, boyo, the lady is only talking to you to get to me." I pull the sword out and present it to the little witch. She looks on it with deep scrutiny. "It's not enchanted," she marvels. The sword glows. Her eyes turn back to me. "What is this?" I smile. "Just a sword." She looks skeptical, and the sword sounds hurt. "Just," it begins. "Just a sword? Really?" The woman touches the sword and chants a short spell. Identify. Arcane runes simmer along the flat side of the sword. This, she fumbles for words, is old. I'm curious as to what she learned as the sword mellows. I sheathe the blade. The woman's eyes never leave the sword. She looks like she wants to say something more, but doesn't. I wait a moment before turning to find a bed. Soon, I close my eyes to the world and let sleep take me. The next few days pass with intense clashes with the drow. My sword drips red from the enemy I'd just dispatched. I don't exult in battle the way the sword does, but with every victory I harden my spirit to my task. What at first seemed to be skirmishes are developing into wartime conflicts. Shield wall, the female commander calls. Our shield bearers hold the brunt of the assault, while others fold around the attacking elves. The little witch is busy casting hexes to confuse and weaken the bio-ball of enemies. My blade glows. The runes that had appeared when it was identified remain as darker characters. I find myself charging a bowman. Grim determination reflects in the drow's features. He knocks an arrow and lines up his shot. I watch his actions and ready my blade. The arrow flies, and in a split second, I cut the projectile in half. The head and feathers fall to the ground harmlessly. Since I've participated in this conflict, my mastery of the sword has grown in ways I never would have thought possible. The dark elf looks alarmed as I close the gap between us. His fingers fidget with a new arrow, but I am upon him. My weapon pierces the stunned man, and he cries out with pain. My blade comes free of the man's sagging form, and I find the next threat. The battle comes to a close as the dark elves retreat. I wipe the sword on the shirt of a dead drow before sheathing it. Good job, bear. I knew you were cut out for this. I find myself aloof to the sword's praise. We need more people, someone says. Yeah, I don't know how much longer we can hold them off. The military needs to get involved. Voices share their support for the sentiment. I put it out of mind as we return to the garrison. When we return, the commander, Liara, approaches me. Good work out there, she says. Thanks. She examines me. You've improved with every passing day. In you I see a talent that I don't want to lose. Would you consider taking on a commission with us? I'm surprised by the offer. The sword grows excited. We'll be able to fight every day. Accepted. I pause. I'm sorry, but I'm not prepared to accept such a responsibility. She exhales. Can't blame me for trying. How much longer will you be with us? I weigh my options. I've made a decent income in my time here, but I'm a nomad by nature. Another week. All right, she says. It'll be hard to see you go, but I understand. She parts with me and I take some time to decompress after the battle. I don't know when it was that killing became so natural to me. It's a development that I don't like. It's all right to take lives when you're protecting something, bearer. Protecting what? I echo. What am I protecting? I'm killing for money. The sword is silent for a moment. I've watched countless bearers go through what you're going through. I looked at the sword. Battle fatigue has ruined many who take up arms. But it says, you have a destiny, even if you can't see it. And that destiny has me in it. I take a deep breath. My eyes turn away from my partner, and I let the tension pass from me. The days that follow see more and more challenges. The military has deployed a unit to support the efforts of the garrison, and more drow infiltrate the region. My battle fatigue does not abate, but soon I part from the warfront, well compensated for my work. I leave without fanfare, just a solitary adventurer on the road. I could return to Tia, but I feel the wanderlust come upon me, and I turn to the south. The Empire is a broad land with many territories. Some face civil strife, like the Rungi territory. Others face challenges by the other races. The south is a land of plenty and danger. Far away, the southern border meets the demonic cesspool from which monsters spawn. Despite efforts to block the intrusion of the demons, the land is plagued with them. Demons, huh? The sword sounds excited. Now these are real enemies. We won't necessarily find any, I tell it. Oh boyo, you can be so naive at times. I shrug and keep moving. At night, I settle down to cultivate. My soul world seems so real that I could walk under its trees. That will come later, the sword says. For now, just breathe in the chi of heaven and earth. Merge the material with the immaterial. I look to the sword. How long was that? Oh, a couple of days. You're learning. Keep it up, partner. I nod. My sleep habits change as I develop as a cultivator. It takes less sleep for me to feel rested, and I can go longer without. That's the energy of the universe, the chi. Most mortals never even begin on the path of immortality. It is a gift of the universe to all. Sacred beasts, demons, all find their power in one form of chi or another. I listen to the proud sword preach as I gather my camp. One of my bearers had actually tamed a mystic fox, huge beast, the size of a horse. The man who tamed it gained command of foxfire. All sacred beasts have special magics that they can bestow upon anyone that they choose. We should go find one. I nod absent-mindedly. Wheat fields wave back and forth with the wind. The south is the breadbasket of the empire and neighboring kingdoms. I think on the life of a farmer. To have one plot of land to cultivate year after year, there's stability, but it comes at the cost of freedom. Mine is a nomadic lifestyle. I can sleep under the stars and eat the wild game. I wouldn't trade it for anything. As I wander, I see a plume of smoke rising into the sky. Rather than carrying on my way, I rush towards the fire. When I come upon the site of the fire, I see bandits binding a woman and her daughter, their house on fire, and a dead man leaking red blood on the dirt. The bandits see me as soon as I see them. They hold their weapons menacingly. Keep walking. This is none of your business. I see the man's eyes on my sword attached to my hip. Please, the daughter begs, help us. One of the men smacks the girl. My hand finds the sword handle. Yay, the sword says. Let's wreck them. An orange glow emits from the weapon, bringing surprised looks upon the faces of the bandits. Leave now, I command, and I won't kill you. A number of the bandits look to one another, scared. But a leader steps forward and bellows, "Kill him." 3 men rush forward. My sword weaves around their knives and wood axes. The first man loses a hand at the wrist while I prepare for the second. He thrusts with a knife and I retreat. The handless man takes a moment to realize his state and cries out with pain. The other bandits look spooked and don't know what to do. Leave, I command them. Like hell, the leader bellows. Come on, boys. Despite his defiance, the other bandits don't follow him on his suicide attack. In one fluid motion, I decapitate the bandit leader. I breathe in deeply. I won't say it again. The remaining men move away from the mother and daughter. With a final look over their shoulders, they retreat. The woman is crying, "Thank you." I unbind them, and their eyes turn to the man the bandits killed. They haltingly approach the corpse. I turn my eyes away from the sight. It takes some time for them to mourn against the backdrop of their burning house. I help them dig a shallow grave for their husband and father. "Will you be okay?" I ask. The tears have dried, but the pain remains. "I have my brother nearby," the mother says, "but nothing is okay." I nod solemnly. "I can escort you to your brother." "Thank you," the woman says. Her daughter numbly stares at the grave of her father. "Come, Anne," the mother says. Reluctantly, the daughter joins us on the road. The brother's farm is a few hours' journey, and I see my party inexperienced with long travel. As we come under the shade of a tree, I stop and let them rest. "What's your name?" the daughter asks. "Askilar." She almost smiles. "Thank you, Askilar." It takes the rest of the day, but we find our destination. The brother meets the survivors, and emotions well up again. Quietly, I leave the scene and carry on with my aimless journey. "It's hard," the sword says. "Huh?" I'm startled out of my thoughts. "Dealing with the collateral. The families torn apart by fighting and killing. You'd think in all the time I've been doing this, I would have seen it all. But human misery manifests uniquely for every circumstance." "Yeah," I say, depressed. I find a quiet corner to make camp and focus on my meditation.